Ignition sequence start. 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. We have a liftoff.
What's up, Doom Nation, and welcome back. You are listening to the Two Doom Men podcast. As always, it's Skaggs and yours truly, the Captain. Welcome back. How you doing, buddy?
Good. Excited to be back. Fresh off of all the work we did at the Libertarian Party convention in Connecticut. That was
What a
good
hell of
time.
an event that was.
Yeah, it was fun, man. I enjoyed it. Excited to be back. There is some stuff to talk about, something that I kind of been sitting on here for a while and wanted to get into. How you doing over there, buddy? I know you're a little sick the other day.
Had better days, but let's get it going,
Yeah,
pal.
Captain's a warrior out here. He's not feeling good the other day.
Yeah.
Here we are, podcasting.
Today's just been taking him on the chin.
So, like I said, we were at the Libertarian Party convention, and it was a good time. A lot of good people there, and I guess you would assume that we talked to people outside of all the recording we did and hung out with people. We talked about politics, right? I mean, surprise, surprise. And one of the things that I've been working on the last week or so that I wanted to dig into is I wanted to go back to the Israel-Palestine war. And I wanted to talk a little bit about Benjamin Netanyahu and kind of his situation there and that whole thing. So we're going to stick with that one topic tonight. We're going to do a little bit of a deep dive. We've got 2 articles to read from, a video, and Captain and I, as always, will give our takes. I kind of wanted to start, though, where we had... So let's back up. At the Libertarian Party Convention in Connecticut, hanging out in the backyard out there, or in the courtyard, the Courtyard Marriott. We're all having some smokes, and we're having a little debate out there with people. Now, Cap, I don't know if you were part of this debate originally, so you might have a little bit different take. So, of course, I kind of want to bounce this off of you. But we were talking about the war.
There was so much talking going on. I had to go back to the room just to be quiet for a little bit.
Yeah, it's libertarians,
so
right? So yeah,
I
that's all
don't.
we did was just.
I could have been
yammer.
part of. I was probably a part of 97 debates that day.
Yeah, it was fun though. I had a good time. So we were talking about with a few people the war between Israel, Hamas, Palestine.
Shocking.
Yes, and someone said to me that we shouldn't even be talking about this or making the moral argument or getting into the weeds about who's right and wrong, because I'm just America first. And that doesn't really affect us in any way to some extent. And when you get lost in the weeds, then people stop caring about the thing and you don't kind of get back around to what really matters in America. So like we shouldn't even have the conversation really or even worry about it.
So because this person's America first, we should have no conversation about Israel and Gaza.
In a sense, yeah. Not that they, and you know, so what is your thoughts? And that's not the first person. I'm not trying to pick on this one person. It's not the first person kind of that I know that's made that point to us before. Like, I'm America first. I don't give a fuck what's going on over there or what's happening. So let's start because we're going to dive deep into this. What are your thoughts around that concept?
I mean, I don't disagree with the America first idea. We're stretched too thin as it is. We're spending too much money. We're digging a deeper and deeper hole. And I mean, I say I'm America first because me and you and a majority of our listeners and the people that we hope reach, you know, the message that we give out is reaching to them, that we kind of understand whether this war was organic or planned or whatever. The powers that be are looking to seize control of the crisis and change laws and enhance the surveillance state and decide what speech is allowed around it and telling the people of America what to support. So in that sense, yes, I am America first. Do I think we could do that? No. I mean, we know we're going to get involved one way or another, but I actually do have, as we go on, after reading some of the stuff that you sent me for the topics tonight, I do have a little bit of a new idea and more of like questions and talking points that I'm going to bring up
Sure.
when we get to them, just so yeah, I don't want to shoot all my bullets right now with
You
it,
don't shoot your load yet.
because I was just reading stuff and just some of it is so backwards,
Yeah.
so ridiculous. We must protect Israel at all costs, and if we talk about genocide in Israel, you should be banned from everything. You're Islamophobic, no,
Anti-Semitic.
anti-Semitic, and you should be hung from the rafters. But if you want to turn Gaza into a parking lot, you're cheered and championed in the media. And so it is such a weird situation. And the powers that be, the things they want that they're getting support for, mind blowing.
Yeah.
So
So the point you're making is something we talked about recently: moral objectivism versus moral relativism, right? Where if you're objective, like if you're moral objectively, then just people getting killed, you don't like it, right? If you're a relativist, well, if people on my side get killed, I don't like it. If people on the other side get killed, I don't give a fuck, right? So the moral argument I was trying to make to this person is essentially like, generally I care about humans, no matter where they are, whether they're Jews in Israel or Palestinians in Gaza, right? Like I'm sure you would agree to that point. Like we don't want to see people die or be just maimed and killed, even Ukrainians over there. And
pretty much anti-war, yeah.
Yeah, it's not good. Like people being killed, starved, blown up, children being killed, and etc. It's funny saying the America First point, like maybe some right-wingers, America First people would be surprised to hear that. Like libertarians are America First. Like that's the reason why a lot of libertarians believe in libertarianism, right? Because all those policies are America First.
Libertarians believe in property rights, and all their property is in America.
Right? So. Yeah, exactly. The point I was trying to make, and the point I'm going to make here tonight, why we should even get into this, is because whether you like it or not, this affects America, and whether or not me and Captain or anybody at home or any other famous podcaster or news pundit has a discussion about this, our government is going to go ahead with supporting one side or the other and being involved, and the world empire is going to remain. Therefore, us not talking about it doesn't actually do anything for America First. In my opinion, if you want to be America First, I think you need to take a good stab at explaining the situation to people so that they could better understand what side they should fall on, because like I don't have a magic wand where I could like right now, like I don't know, Cap, me and you want the war to end. How are we gonna get that to happen? Like what can we do? You know what I mean? So like if we're gonna do something, we gotta at least talk about it, right?
I agree, because obviously it's not going to happen in this particular case, but we've ran into issues before where the administration is like, oh, we're going to do X, Y, and Z. And like they kind of just put like the bait out there.
Sure.
And then all of a sudden, every podcast is fuck that. We're not doing X, Y, and Z. Twitter erupts. Fuck X, Y, and Z. Hell no, blah, blah, blah. Like when they were, I can't remember the name of the organization, but Kamala Harris was basically going to be put in charge of what is free speech on social media or something like that.
Oh, was that?
Do you remember that?
Yeah, the Ministry of Truth organization. I don't know if it was her or was that crazy lady who sings and dances on TikTok.
Well, it was one person, and then it was
Nina
her
or whatever her name was.
Yeah, but like there was they put that bait out there, and there was just so much immediate blowback. So if you're not talking about it and they don't get this negative blowback right away, they move forward with shit like that.
Yeah, the vaccine passport, right? I mean, the outrage against that stopped it dead in its tracks, to be honest with you. Like, they'll stick their toe in the pool of tyranny every so often just to test the waters and see what they could get away with. And if it's too hot, they'll take it out. Yeah. Like, they treat us like frogs in the boiling pot, but we can also boil the pot on them. So, and this will circle back later to some of the things we're going to talk about. Even in this specific topic, I think you're going to see that it does matter what people think and know about it. So I just think it's important because this does affect us. That's my point. To stick your head in the sand and not care about it isn't going to change the way our government acts. And they're going to be involved in this. So like that doesn't solve anything. So let's start. We're going to do a little reading tonight and go into depth on this one. Like I said, we're just sticking to the one topic. And who better to go to on foreign policy than
our
boy, Mr. Scott Horton himself and Connor Freeman. Now, Scott's been talking. He's been on our show a couple times. It's funny because, like, if you read this article, it's like the most Scott Horton article ever. It's 17 pages of him just going on and on. So it's like it reads as if we had him on the podcast anyway.
Yeah,
and he just would be, we just wind him up and let him go. And Connor,
we should have just had AI read this page and be like, Scott, what do you think about this? And then just press play.
Sure. Yeah, that basically be it. Connor Freeman also is a contributor here. He helped Scott write this article. It's recent, October 27th. It's called Netanyahu's Support for Hamas Backfired. We touched on this when the war kind of started. As things have gone on, I've learned a lot more. I've been researching the history of Israel and Zionism and all these things, and I find it fucking fascinating. I'll just even start off. Let's give the disclaimer. Obviously, me and Captain, we got no problem with Jewish people or anything like that. We're not anti-Semitic, obviously. I actually, after learning a lot more about Zionism, I kind of fucking respect what they did. It's pretty impressive. I don't know if, like, the government and mobs of people were attacking Italians constantly, and we had enough. And me and Captain were like, fuck this. We're going to go start a new country in Sicily somewhere. And then we actually did it. That's pretty impressive. Not an easy feat. Like, look, the Free State Project in New Hampshire, they're not having like, they're doing something, but they're not having the easiest time seceding from the Union at this point in time. So that being said, I also don't think I think it's goofy for people to say criticizing a government is anti-Semitic. Or anything like that.
But I mean, look at the people who say that, though.
I know.
I know. We need to take into account that the people who say this are controlled by said government.
Sure.
So.
And I think, obviously, here, me and the Captain, we're America first. We care about America. But I think a lot of what we're going to get to here actually should be taken to heart by Israelis because it has your best interest and your survival at heart as well. So let's get into Scott's. Let me read a little bit here. Give you some kind of like, I want to start with like a little bit of backstory. Then we'll come into the present day with another article from Ryan Grimm. And the Captain and I will kind of like in between give our takes on what we're reading here. So Netanyahu's support for Hamas backfired. Like I said, this is 17 pages. I already pre-read it. I skipped ahead and I highlighted what I kind of want to read. So killing the peace process. Beginning in 1979 at Camp David, Israel promised to begin the process to negotiate a sovereign state on the 22% left of Palestine after the war of 1947 and 1948. I don't have time to go through the entire history of Palestine and Israel here, so I cherry pick certain things. If you want, I highly recommend you go read this entire article. It's a pretty all-inclusive thing. The West Bank, including East Jerusalem and the Gaza Strip, occupied by Tel Aviv since 1967. By 1988, Palestine Liberation Organization, the PLO leader Yasser Arafat, you might remember him from when you were a kid, Cap, who headed the Fatah party, had recognized Israel within its 1967 borders. The Oslo Accords peace process began in 1993 and was supposed to implement this two-state reality. So back then, I know one of the talking points is always that they walked away or they had no intention of making peace with Israel. Yasser Arafat did have intention of making peace. They wanted their own state back in the 90s. It was a sham. All the while, even though the Fourth Geneva Convention says that it is illegal for one nation to transfer their own civilian populations into land seized in a war, and United Nations Security Council Resolution 242 says that Israel must withdraw from the occupied territories, hundreds of thousands of Israeli Jewish colonists or settlers have moved to the occupied West Bank, including East Jerusalem, which they consider part of a future Greater Israel. This has effectively made a sovereign state there impossible. You understand the concept behind that? Like, there's people living on the other side of the wall, essentially, in Palestine.
I love how they called it the future Greater Israel. They already have plans for it, so you're already trespassing. My next door neighbors live in the future extension of my apartment, so I should go destroy them because in the future I'm going to knock down this wall and have a big fucking apartment.
Yeah,
I'm going to go get rid of them.
Maybe there's probably some property out here I kind of want to get my hands on. Maybe it's the way we're gonna have to start running the policy.
Just call it the future Skaggs property and murder whoever owns it.
I could do whatever I want. Yeah, it's a good point. Yeah, and then if anybody cries about it, I'll call them anti-Italian discrimination or something like that from The Sopranos.
Anti-Scaglione.
Yeah. All right. So where are we at? The Israeli government under Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, who used to play along with the narrative of eventual two-state solution in the last decade, officially canceled the illusion that he would ever let this occur. Now, again, I think the theme of this episode is going to be Netanyahu's goal in Gaza, right? Everybody knows that's where the war is going on, and that's kind of the central figure I'm concentrating on here today, Benjamin Netanyahu.
I like the word illusion.
Illusion, yeah, that's a good one.
They knew it was a farce to begin with.
Yeah, it's applicable. Netanyahu said in 2015 that I think that anyone who is going to establish a Palestinian state today and evacuate lands is giving attack grounds to radical Islam against the state of Israel. Anyone who ignores this is sticking his head in the sand. The left does this time and time again. We are realistic and understand. Netanyahu was then asked specifically whether he meant that a Palestinian state would not be established if he were re-elected prime minister. He answered, correct. Even though he temporarily relented on an official annexation of the Jordan River Valley, Netanyahu still vowed in 2020 that Israel will retain security control on the entire area west of the Jordan River. In other words, from the river to the Mediterranean Sea, Palestine will never be free, as long as Benjamin Netanyahu is in charge. Keep that in mind and that phrase in mind for a later video that we'll get into here as well. I'm going to skip down now to another part of highlight. So Hamas, Israel's strategic ally. You might remember we kind of talked about this a couple episodes ago. I read that right after the attack happened, I read that piece in the Haaretz newspaper from Israel where they kind of talked about this. So like even an Israeli newspaper was talking about this right after the attack happened. In case you're thinking this is conspiracy theory or one of these pejoratives that they throw out everywhere. I also highlighted this just because it is, sorry, not this part, but anyway, let me go on. So Hamas, Israel's strategic ally. Or sorry, actually, yes. I highlighted this just as kind of like Scott Horton is not saying here that Israel and Netanyahu planned the attack like a false flag and wanted it to happen. That's not what he's saying, right? So that's why I highlighted this part specifically, because if I'm cherry picking things out of the article, you might come to the conclusion that Scott Horton's a crazy conspiracy theorist or something like that, like we were just saying, and that he's I'm not trying to put words in his mouth. This was just important, so I want to make sure everybody understands that. So he says, there's no reason to think Hamas is secretly controlled by Israel, but their seemingly antithetical interests are in fact closely aligned and serve each other's purposes, as Brian McGlinchey, Andrew Higgins, Robert Sale, and others have exclusively detailed for decades. Israel has provided Hamas and its precursors with both direct and indirect financial support. And Benjamin Netanyahu has been, deeply involved in this whole process. I'm going to skip ahead a little bit to the Likud talking about supporting Hamas. If you don't know, the Likud is a political party in Israel. They're Benjamin Netanyahu's political party. It's not a perfect comparison, but let's compare Benjamin Netanyahu to Trump and the MAGA Republican base to the Likud. It's not a perfect comparison. I'm not saying that's exactly what it is, but just for people who don't know what the fuck the Likud is or whatever, that's essentially what it is. It's just a political party that he's a member of, the figurehead of at this point, I guess you could say. So, as Israeli journalists Marin Rappaport and historian Adam Raz, among others, have extensively chronicled, this result of a divided and conquered Palestine with Gaza under the control of Hamas terrorists is exactly what Likud wanted. Likud spokesperson Jonathan Urich, one of Netanyahu's media advisors, bragged that one of Netanyahu's key successes was disconnecting Gaza from the West Bank. Bring the map up if you're watching, if you're listening. Gaza is on the left, the West Bank is on the right. They're physically separated. These are the two main areas where Palestinians live. The West Bank is near Jerusalem, and Gaza is near the Mediterranean Sea. So they're disconnected, right? Like they can't just travel, walk there's physical separation between these two groups
Mhm.
of Palestinians within Israel. I think like spaces and maps, people should keep that in mind always, right? Because that can be used to manipulate people as well. Likud where are we at? Likud spokesperson Jonathan Urich, one of Netanyahu's media advisors, bragged that one of Netanyahu's key successes was disconnecting Gaza from the West Bank, both politically and conceptually. Netanyahu basically smashed the vision of the Palestinian state in these two places. Some of the achievement is related to the Qatari money reaching Hamas each month. Netanyahu has previously dispatched high officials, such as Mossad chief Yossi Cohen, to Doha, begging the Qataris to keep funneling money into Hamas, as Avigdor Lieberman, the former defense minister, put it. This is such a Scott Horton article because he just uses these people's own words to like write the story. Like, of course, he interjects some of his own opinion and whatnot in here, but he's just like quoting people as he always does, like them saying the stuff themselves. At times, this money would enter the Gaza Strip, in suitcases full of millions of dollars at a time. As Haaretz Amos Harel wrote back in November 2018, the criticism suffered by Netanyahu over the weekend was earned fair and square. The photos of $15 million in cash from Qatar entering the Gaza Strip in suitcases cast a ridiculous light on his repeated claims of being tough on Hamas. Doesn't that sound familiar? Millions of dollars of cash. Sounds kind of like what Obama was doing in Israel, right? Like, this is the games that
the pallets of cash.
Yeah, like these people play in geopolitics, while they're talking tough on a certain issue. In reality, Netanyahu is conducting indirect negotiations with Hamas, though he and his government religiously refuse to confirm this. The Qatari cash, which will help preserve Hamas's hold on Gaza, could not have entered without his approval. From 2012 to 2018, Doha provided more than $1 billion to Hamas. Hundreds of millions per year. With Tel Aviv's green light, among other things, this money was used to fund education, healthcare, and aid, including through the UN, pay government salaries, and purchase fuel. Distel Atbarian, former Minister of Information and current Likudnik member of the Knesset — the Knesset is like their version of Congress — defended the policy this way. Mark my words, Netanyahu keeps Hamas on its feet so that the entire state of Israel won't become the Gaza envelope. If Hamas collapses, Abbas is the president of the Palestinian Authority in the West Bank. He's kind of like the figurehead of the guy who could be the president of Palestine, if that were to occur. Abbas is liable to control Gaza. If he will control it, voices from the left will arise advocating negotiations and a diplomatic settlement and a Palestinian state, including in Judea and Samaria, the West Bank. What did I say before? They don't want to give up the West Bank particularly.
But giving them money and keeping them afloat, but then if the figurehead dies, they'll end this diplomatically.
I think we'll continue on here. I think keep in mind they're playing one side against the other of the Palestinians. Keep in mind. Remember the separation, the physical separation I mentioned before? Gaza's over there. The West Bank's over here. They're physically separated. Abbas is in control of the West Bank. He's kind of like the president. He's not a radical, insane person the way Hamas is. Hamas is a bunch of insane, radical terrorists. They're playing them against each other, right? To some extent. Like, this is all manipulation to one extent or another. Let's continue. Later, she reiterated this point. If Hamas crumbles, Abbas may rule Gaza. If he rules it, sorry, I read this part already, but I'll read it again anyway for context. Voices on the left will encourage a Palestinian state in Judea and Samaria as well. This is the real reason Netanyahu doesn't annihilate Hamas. Everything else is bullshit. I was going to say before, I remember about a year or two ago, history didn't just start on October 7th with this whole thing. I saw a tweet a couple of years
For some people it did.
For some people it did, right? But I saw a tweet a couple of years ago from Netanyahu where he was basically saying, like, there's never going to be a Palestinian state in Judea and Samaria. And, like, I saw this, and I'm like, that's in the West Bank. That's where the Palestinians are. And I commented on it, and I was like, so what you're telling me is you're just never going to, negotiate. You're going to just constantly be combative with them, and then you're going to get mad when they do something about it in the future. Right? Like, that was like my tweet, in a sense, at the time, a couple of years ago. And this came up in my memories. I was like, isn't that fucking ironic? Like, that's essentially exactly
you're
what happened.
100% right.
Yeah.
That's exactly what his plan was.
Okay, so everything else is bullshit. Gerson Hakuan, sorry for butchering these names, they're difficult to pronounce, a major general in reserves as well as an associate of Netanyahu, said, "We need to tell the truth. Netanyahu's strategy is to prevent the option of two states. So he is turning Hamas into his closet partner. Openly, Hamas is an enemy. Covertly, it's an ally." Hakuan elaborated further on the strategy, stressing that instead of taking out Hamas, Netanyahu prevented Abbas' plot to establish a united Palestinian state. We need to take advantage of the situation of separation between Gaza and Ramallah. Ramallah is like the city that's kind of like the capital of the West Bank, Palestine. This is a top Israeli interest, and it is impossible to understand the campaign in Gaza without understanding this context. Hakuan oversaw the disengagement policy in 2005. That was a little bit later. Earlier on in the article, disengagement policy is essentially Israel was militarily occupying the Gaza Strip during those years, and they were like, okay, we'll leave. We'll take the IDF out of Gaza. All they really did was bring them back to the border and surround the whole place and built the wall and trap these people in there. That same year, former Prime Minister Barak, Netanyahu's own former defense minister, presciently warned that Likud strategy could blow back onto Israeli citizens, particularly those living near the besieged Gaza Strip. Netanyahu's strategy is to keep Hamas alive and kicking, even at the price of abandoning the citizens of the South in order to weaken the Palestinian Authority in Ramallah in the West Bank. Isn't that prophetic, right? This is years ago. This person is saying, let's read that again because I thought that's important. That's fucking prophetic. That same year, I believe the year they're referring to is 2005, Prime Minister Barak, Netanyahu's own former defense minister, warned that the Likud strategy could blow back onto Israeli citizens, particularly those living near the besieged Gaza Strip. Netanyahu's strategy is to keep Hamas alive and kicking, even at the price of abandoning the citizens of the South in order to weaken the Palestinian Authority in Ramallah. What did I say before that? Like, part of the reason of this is, like, I'm trying to help. I'm trying to help you guys, right, over in Israel. Like, that was true. His policy led to the attack on October 7th. That was the blowback. Almost 10 years later. Right? Yeah. This guy was fucking right. In the South.
You want to know who you're fighting tomorrow? See who you're funding today.
Yeah,
right?
This is the Dave Smith quote, right? Barak confirms that Netanyahu's goal was keeping the South on a constant low flame. The purpose was to support Hamas, to weaken the PA, and avoid any sincere negotiations toward a future Palestinian state. It's easier with Hamas to explain to Israelis that there is no one to sit with and no one to talk to. If the PA strengthens, then there will become someone to talk to, he said. That's the crux of the policy, right? No one's going to negotiate with Hamas. They're fucking crazy psychopaths, right? But Abbas and the Palestinian Authority, they wear suits and ties. They're more level-headed, right? Like, they're more legitimate. And if they kind of, like, gain more legitimacy, then we have to go in good faith.
And we're going to lose, yeah.
And negotiate with them and give them a country. And let's be fair, the country they're talking about is just the land that they're sitting on already. Anyway,
so basically,
the Palestinians.
they'd rather the savages run the country. So
correct.
You know,
the savages
legit people
delegitimize the process. There'll never be a Palestinian country or Palestine as long as these crazy Islamic terrorists are in charge of a piece of it, right? And they'll just wait it out forever, as long as it takes. If there's one thing about the Zionists, God damn it, they're fucking patient. They'll wait as long as it takes.
Playing the long game.
All right, so let's skip ahead a little bit more. A little bit left here that I highlighted. The Netanyahu doctrine. Warning, if you are a Trump supporter, you are not going to like this. Because this has to do a little bit with the Abraham Accords, which everyone who is a Trump supporter touts as like peace in the Middle East the last couple of years. And now, to some extent, like peace between countries is a good thing. But I think something that might have been overlooked is this situation here. And I think you would agree with me here, Captain. Doesn't seem like there's peace right now in the Middle East, right? All right. So Netanyahu doctrine. For decades, the policies of the Arabian monarchs and neighboring Sunni Muslim states had been that they would not permanently normalize relations with Israel until the Palestinians finally got their independent state. Okay, does everyone understand that? The other countries in the areas won't make friends with Israel until Israel gives the Palestinians their rights and their state, right? That's why they're all so concerned about this. Whatever, it's their brothers, right? They're brethren. They see it as an injustice, amongst other things, I'm sure. But President Donald Trump's son-in-law, Jared Kushner, figured that the American people could afford the king's price. Bahrain got F-16s. The United Arab Emirates was promised F-35s. Sudan got their debts rolled over onto American taxpayers. And Trump recognized Morocco's theft of the northern Western Sahara. All of this was in exchange for their abandoning the Palestinians and recognizing Israel under the so-called Abraham Accords. Does that make sense to you, Captain, at all? Like that point? I don't know if you've heard this before.
Yeah, no, I from everything you've read, this part I've actually am slightly familiar with of how the Abraham Accords went, because this is when he established, oh God, in Israel, what was it? What, the headquarters or something, when Trump established it's at the tip of my
embassy?
tongue.
The embassy.
Yes.
And he moved it to Jerusalem, I think.
Yes.
Something like that.
Yeah.
That's all part of
and this is
sure.
because of that, because they all left Palestine and recognized Israel. This was their agreement.
Right. Keep in mind, like what we said before, a lot of these countries, their beef with Israel is, hey, you're mistreating the Palestinians. They don't have equal rights. They don't have a state. We can't be friends with you, at least on paper, until you do that. Right. Well, Trump and
comes along and gives them a few things, and we're fine with Israel.
Pay you off.
He found the price tag. Yeah,
exactly. Again, context. If you're a Trump supporter and you just shut this off, angry, I think this is something you need to hear, just because context and where we're getting back to here is important. America first, and if you care about Israel that much, it's Israel first too. Here's the moral of our story is going to be. Okay, so the Abraham Accords. Manama even signed defense cooperation and security agreements with Tel Aviv and Washington because, after all, the accords are a thinly veiled foundation for a regional military coalition led by the U.S. and Israel eyeing Iran. They were in the middle of negotiating with Saudi Arabia when the current round of killing broke out. So Saudi Arabia didn't sign on to the Abraham Accords just yet, right? But they were like in the talks to doing so until now. Now all bets are off because of what's going on over there, and we'll see in the future. Last month, Netanyahu even presented a map of the new Middle East to the UN General Assembly with Palestine. That is going to be the cover shot for this episode if you want to see what it is. From the river to the sea, the General Assembly with Palestine, from the river to the sea, completely erased. If you look at the picture, it's just one solid image of Israel. The two little cutouts are not on it anymore. He's literally showing this to the UN. He continued, there's no question the Abraham Accords heralded the dawn of a new age of peace, Netanyahu announced. I believe we're on the cusp of a more dramatic breakthrough, historic peace between Israel and Saudi Arabia, he continued, emphasizing. We must not give the Palestinians a veto over the new peace treaties with the Arab states. See, the Palestinians are only 2% of the Arab world. As long as they believe that the other 98% will remain in a warlike state with Israel, that larger mass, that larger Arab world, could eventually choke, dissolve, destroy the Jewish state. So when the Palestinians see that most of the Arab world has reconciled itself to the Jewish state, they too will be more likely to abandon the fantasy of destroying Israel and finally embrace a path of genuine peace with it. Hang on, I'm going to stop because I want to hear your take on this, because I know you haven't read that much into this stuff. What is your thoughts of him framing it in that way so far, with everything you've read so far?
In my opinion, he's just looking to glass over Palestine. This is all about this future Israeli state. I understand what they're saying. If you were to be in Netanyahu's cabinet or to be in a Israeli supporter, this is all just working things in your country's favor. You know what I'm saying? He's basically negotiating in a genocidal way, as far as I'm concerned, a way to create this larger future Israel.
Okay. Yeah.
You get what I'm saying?
Yeah, I get what you're saying. Probably. At least that's probably what Benjamin Netanyahu tells himself at night before he goes to sleep. The point I'm trying to make is that he's not negotiating to protect or
Oh, I don't think he's looking to protect anything but his
for
own.
for Israel.
Yeah.
Or at least not knowingly, right? Like, this is a mistake. Let's give him the
Mhm.
kindest interpretation of what he's doing. This is all a terrible mistake, Benjamin Netanyahu, and you shouldn't do any of this stuff that you've been doing. Let's give him the kindest interpretation. Take that as you will. By destroying Israel, of course, Netanyahu
The one thing, I'm sorry to
No,
interrupt you, but the one thing that really blows my mind in this particular situation. Now, I could understand if the Arab nations that surround Israel wanted to turn in on Israel, Israel could be destroyed. I just don't see how Palestine, the little bit of that land that is there, is going to be the downfall of Israel.
like themselves, right? Yeah,
Right. Right. Because they
doesn't.
keep talking about like destroying Israel and growing Israel and like this is like a David and Goliath match here, as far as I'm
Ironically.
concerned. But like, pretty sure Goliath is gonna win this one. I don't like, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
this heavily militarized nation is worried about like terrorists that live in a 5-mile strip.
Right.
You know, like are the NYPD really that concerned that like the Bloods are going to take over
New York
all
City.
of New York from Albany to Brooklyn? There shall be blood. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like, I don't see how like they really on this level that they're operating on. You know what I mean? Like for us to discuss, it's one thing, but for like Netanyahu to be like, this 5-mile strip is going to destroy all of Israel is completely bizarre to me.
It doesn't pass the basic smell test, right?
No.
And
No.
I agree with you. And before I really started, and I'm not done digging into the history of this entire conflict, I am listening to the Martyr Made podcast on it and reading some things. The way I kind of always looked at it is like technologically advanced civilization, bunch of rubes.
Cavemen.
Right? Cavemen with like rube technology. And a few of them, a lot of the other guys. Like that's the way I kind of saw it as well. Like, you know, like I don't know, can't you just work something out? You know, it's like you're so OP against them. Like you have all the cards. You also got the World Empire backing you up.
I've been saying this since the beginning of October. Why does one of the most militarized nations in the world need military support from, forget America, just from anyone? You know what I'm saying? Like we're known for our military. Oh no, a couple of guys on hang gliders shot up some people. America, please send us tanks and F-16s and nukes. The math does not add up.
While simultaneously telling you that their state's existence is key to the security of our nation.
Yeah.
I mean, like, does that pass the basic smell test?
Right,
I don't know, like,
because Israel is attached to the southern border of California.
But even then,
forgetting
I don't
that.
know, like,
you know,
all the time, all the wars we've been in the last, you know, the insane, stupid wars we've been in the last fucking 20 years.
Yeah.
Did Israel fight on our side in any of them?
Nope.
Did they help us invade Iraq? Did they send any troops? No. To be honest with you, like, one of the reasons why we fought in Iraq was kind of just to protect them, again, from Saddam and that whole thing. We're going to get rid of him. So he was aggressive towards them. So, that, you know, a lot of these things, the more you like think about them critically, they don't pass the basic smell test. And again, I'm talking about the government of Israel here. Just make that clear again.
Not the people, not the
there.
the good Jewish people that are innocent and have nothing to do with this.
Yep. Let's continue. I think that's it in terms of what I highlighted. So let's go back here. So by destroying Israel, of course, Netanyahu just meant the Palestinians would have to give up their hope of ever getting their independent state or equal rights as citizens under Israeli sovereignty. Now that they know no one is coming to help them, they would finally just accept their utter defeat and permanent status as a militarily occupied, stateless, and rightless conquered people, he thought, Benjamin Netanyahu. In March...
See, this is, you know, we're talking about passing the smell test. When has any nation or group of people just, hold on, where Palestine would give up when is any nation just acceptingly give up their hopes of ever getting their independent state or equal rights as a citizen under Israeli sovereignty, now that they know no one is coming to help, they would finally just accept their utter defeat and permanent status as a military occupied, stateless, and rightless conquered people. What group of people that has any form of firepower or any opportunity to fight back has ever accepted this? I will go back to feudal Japan, the samurai. What ended the 1,000-year fucking civil war? I forget his name, but fuck. But they disarmed everyone in Japan, and no one can fight. All that was left was you had to accept defeat. This is what Japan is now, and that only lasted for so long before they tried fighting against the warlords. I don't see how someone as powerful and who has been in power for as long as Netanyahu has been would just imagine these people are just going to accept defeat.
It's a gamble, right? I will push back on what you're saying. There's historical precedent. This thing has happened many times in human history. The Native Americans are a great example, right?
True.
Where's their state now? I mean, like, I don't know. They kind of live in these quasi autonomous casinos. I don't know. Like, are they really their own country anymore? They kind of just gave up on that whole idea. The British Empire crushed many, many different, like tribal areas and things like that, and race. I think like in like Tasmania, like the Tasmanian people, like they're gone, like completely. Columbus and some of the like the fucking original people in the Caribbean, like they're gone. So like it's not impossible that you could just wipe people out or get them to become so demoralized that they just give up. I mean, this is something we talk about here all the time. What's like the state always trying to do? What's like the tyrannical government demoralize people so they just give up? It's hopeless, right? And that's exactly what fucking Netanyahu's saying. His plan is here for the Palestinians. They'll just give up. The other Arab countries, they don't care anymore. There's nothing they could do. They're all at peace with Israel, so we'll just give up, But that's not what they did, right?
No, shocking.
What did they do? They said, we have to do something to get the Arab states in the area back on our side. We have to do something shocking, something that will really make Israel do something that will piss them off. So they carried out the fucking attack on October 7th. It was shocking. It was heinous. They killed civilians. No one's fucking denying that, right? And what's been Israel's reaction? To go in there and level people, bombardments, civilian casualties. Zoom out. How is everyone behaving now? What's going on in the streets in the United States? What are the Arab nations doing? The fucking king of Saudi Arabia and the Ayatollah of Iran met for the first time in like ever, right? Like they're mortal enemies. But because of this, they now met again, like to talk about the situation. Now, like, I don't know if they're actually going to do anything or not, but man, like you overplayed your hand so much on such like a simple thing. Just you could have just given them their state and their rights. And I don't know, like it could have just been like, you guys can't have a military. You can have a state and police, and you can have your do your own little thing, whatever you want, but you just can't have a military because it's like a security threat to us, and we'll leave you alone, something like that. But now it's the opposite. Now, like the state of Israel is at a point where, like, well, I don't know, Iran might get involved, and now
genocide.
Like now all the peace deals are like in in jeopardy with Saudi Arabia and whatnot. Like, did this help Israel? Did this strategy of Netanyahu's actually secure Israel's future in any way whatsoever, by your estimation here?
No.
Yeah, exactly. So this is an Israel first talking point here I'm trying to make. Now, we haven't even gotten to America first yet, right? Because don't forget, we're tied to this, whether you like it or not, whether you wanted me to tell this story, talk about it, for me and the captain to go on it, don't fucking matter. We're tied to this. Now, if Israel's in trouble, don't you think we're in trouble by proxy, right? We're the ones backing them up, funding them. You're talking about how they have all this technology, all these tanks and shit. Where are they getting that from? They're getting that from us. One of the first things that they fucking, this is a bipartisan issue. One of the first things that Mike Johnson did when he became the Speaker of the House, MAGA Mike Johnson, was give them $14 billion in aid, right off the fact. So this is something that, damn it, take off your blinders of MAGA and this and that and whatever. Like, this is something they all agree on all the time, war, especially when it comes to Israel. I'll wrap up here, Scott's article, because it's kind of going a little bit long here, but it's interesting. Donald Trump and Joe Biden administrations, so again, he's Biden as well, for my Trump friends out there, along with Netanyahu, also believed the Palestinians could be erased. They envisioned a Middle East where Washington's longtime Arab dictatorship vassals would all finally plant the Palestinians firmly under the bus, recognize Israel, and sign these phony peace deals in exchange for American arms and as well as other favors. All right, so I felt like that was basically like having Scott Horton on the podcast to a certain extent or another. Any other thoughts, Cap, before we kind of move on to present day stuff? That's kind of the backstory, the history of the last couple of years, and I kind of want to get into what's going on right now.
No, because most of my opinions are based on right now.
Okay. So, again, we've been busy, me and the captain, the last week or two. This is something I had my eye on, something I wanted to talk about, and this was a great article by Ryan Grimm in The Intercept, and it says, Netanyahu's goal for Gaza, thin population to a minimum. To an extent, more of the same, right? Doesn't even seem that different. Hang on one second. I think I'm just having an issue here with the screen share. There we go. Okay. The White House requested billions to support refugee resettlement from Ukraine and Gaza in October. I'm going to skip down to Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has tasked his top advisor, Ron Dermer, the Minister of Strategic Affairs, with designing plans to thin the Palestinian population in the Gaza Strip to a minimum, according to a bombshell new report in an Israeli newspaper founded by the late Republican billionaire Sheldon Adelson. The outlet, Israel Hayom, is considered to be something of an official organ for Netanyahu. It reported that the plan has two main elements. The first would use the pressure of the war and humanitarian crisis to persuade Egypt to allow refugees to flow to the other Arab countries, and the second would open up sea routes so that Israel allows a mass escape to European and African countries. Dermer, who is originally from Miami, is a Netanyahu confidant and was previously Israeli ambassador to the United States and enjoys close relations with many members of Congress. The plan to ethnically...
So he's dirty.
Yeah, that's what it sounds like, right? He's got his feet in, or he's got his toes in all the pools there. The plan to ethnically cleanse Gaza of Palestinians faces some internal resistance from the less hardline members of Netanyahu's cabinet. So, like, they're not all in agreement here, by the way.
Yeah, but if you scroll down, they also say if too many people agree with this, it could derail it. Because what they're asking, this is where my opinions, I'm like, two ways. I don't care either way. Sure, I'm going to sound anti-Semitic here, but like, if Netanyahu is campaigning for genocide, for destroying all of Palestine and killing and bombing so many people that Egypt has to start to feel bad and let them start coming in, and that they have to start figuring out sea routes to get to Europe and Africa and shit to get these refugees out of there. And how can anybody support this man? All right. So there's two sides to this, right? Like, you believe the Palestinians are going to commit genocide in Israel, but the only way to combat it is to commit genocide in Palestine. It makes no sense to me. So, right, I mean, if this is what Netanyahu is campaigning for, but at the same time, Gaza and Palestine is just so small, and Israel is so militarily superior. What are we waiting for? What are we waiting? You know what I'm saying? Like, this is kind of like when we were talking about like Russia, Ukraine, and I was like pro-nuclear war, just wipe them off the map. Everybody's pro-genocide, well, I guess the Biden's base is pro-Palestine and most of Congress here is pro-Israel and all that stuff. What are we waiting for? Just wipe them off the map then. If it's that serious, just wipe them off the map. It could either go one of two ways. You kill the guy who is in favor of genocide, or you let the genocide happen. Which way are we voting here?
Yeah, see, the thing is that they're not framing it that way. They're framing it as, he's the hero
I know,
that's
but
protecting. I know. I know.
that's the problem.
Yeah, I get what you're saying.
All the people who are framing it in that manner are also the problem, and they are also pro genocide.
Sure.
So it's
Right.
it's just
Well,
crazy.
everyone always thinks that they're the good guy. Don't forget, Captain.
Right.
Hitler was the good guy in his own mind,
Yeah.
Um,
Stalin was the good guy. Mao was the good
Yes.
guy. Yeah, I get it.
Yep.
It just I just can't see how a world leader is coming out and being like, we got to thin the herd. We got to thin the herd. We just got to eliminate it. So many of them that people are running into the sea and swimming to Africa.
Right. Now let's distance ourselves, me and you, from the leftists in the street protesting for a ceasefire now. I agree. They don't understand the first fucking thing about this conflict either. Majority of them. Right. So like they're not taking a principle.
You ever
the way
see
being Captain here are. Go ahead.
You ever see the videos of the people who have from the sea to the from the river to the sea signs, and then people are like, what river and what sea are you talking about?
Yeah.
And they're like, I don't. You don't even know what sea?
Yeah.
Okay,
Right.
yeah.
The Jordan River to the Mediterranean Sea. Like you think they would even know the name? This kind of reminds me of how a lot of these people, or like people in Congress, Nikki Haley, Jamal Bowman, they can't even name the provinces in eastern Ukraine that they're fighting over, the Donetsk and Luhansk. It's the same thing, right? A lot of these people who are so eager, right, to kill and send people to their deaths, they don't know anything. They don't even know the basics, the names of the places. It shouldn't surprise us at this point, I guess, right?
No.
It's disgusting, though, to be honest with you, that that's the way people are or think. Damn it, like at least for your own propaganda motive, know what the places are called. Somebody might ask you at some point or another. This like crown jewel policy that Nikki Haley you're advocating for. Did you see when Vivek on the debate stage, basically, I mean, Vivek took a gamble. I'm not gonna lie, where he's basically like, I bet you she can't name the 3 places that we're fighting over, and she couldn't do it. I don't know. I don't know if did. I don't know. Like, did Vivek know that she didn't know? I don't know. It was a huge gamble.
He took a gamble and he didn't care if he won or not. Yeah,
and she couldn't do it. But her crowned, her foreign policy platform is, we got to go in there and we got to give them everything they need and fight over this thing to the end of time. But I don't even know what the place is called.
But after reading this, I was like, okay, I see why there is so much humanitarian support for Palestine, because the mega military power is literally going to turn them into a parking lot. That's the plan. That is the plan. There's no peace. There's no war. It's death and destruction.
Yeah, and again, the point of me reading all this shit is because we could give our opinions here, but I'm telling you the words these people said themselves, right? And we're not the first people to read them or hear them. Again, I'm separating us from the leftists because they don't really understand the situation themselves either. But this is the reality. And for people to say, like, fuck it, who cares? Turn Gaza into a parking lot because they're all dirty terrorists there. Oh, my God. Like, don't you understand? That's what causes the problem in the first place, having that mentality of I could just roll over anybody who I think is a bad guy, right? Like, remember during COVID, they made us out to be the bad guys, the Nazis, the whatever, this. People were fucking advocating that they just send you off to a camp or whatever it is. Like, don't fall in. This is to the right-wingers, right? Like, don't fall into that same false line of thinking that these people are always, like, trying to make you fall into. Let's keep reading here a little bit, and then we have an amazing clip that I want everybody to watch before we wrap it up. All right, so the plan.
You're not sharing right now.
What's that?
You got to reshare.
Oh yeah, sorry, forgot that we weren't sharing. Wanted to give you a close up when you were making your point there. The plan to ethnically cleanse Gaza of Palestinian faces some internal resistance from less hardline members of Netanyahu's cabinet, according to the Israeli Hayom. Israel Today and other Israeli media are also reporting on the plan being pushed with Congress that would condition aid to Arab nations on their...
Hold on. I'm sorry again, but I do have a question. When they say Congress, are they talking about our Congress or their Congress?
Talking about our Congress. Their Congress is called the Knesset. So
sounds about
right to the bank. Yeah, they got to go to the... It's like Monopoly. You just go to the bank for every problem. Yeah. Where our Federal Reserve is the bank for everybody. On their willingness to accept Palestinian refugees. The plan would The plan even proposes specific numbers of refugees for each country. Egypt would take 1 million Palestinians, 500,000 would go to Turkey, and 250,000 each would go to Yemen and Iraq.
Which I laughed at, because if they were sent to Yemen, they would just be bombed anyway.
They'd also just they'd join the Houthis and just become
Yeah.
even like they'd be giving the Houthi rebels in Yemen, who's like attacking Israel's ships now, like more soldiers. It's like not even a good plan to begin with.
No.
Although I know they want to get rid of. I know for years there's been the war in Yemen, so maybe there's like send them some more extremists, and then we have more of a reason to go in there and like get involved there. Who knows? The reporting relies heavily on the passive voice declining to say who put the proposal together. The proposal was shown to key figures in the House and Senate from both parties. Longtime lawmaker Rep. Joe Wilson has even expressed open support for it, while others who were privy to the details of the text have so far kept a low profile, saying the public coming out in favor of the program could derail it.
That's the real story right there. That's how government works, baby. That's why we're talking about this.
Yes.
Because we need to derail it. Our own Senate is like, maybe genocide's a good thing.
Yeah. So sorry, I said the public saying that publicly coming out in favor of the program could derail it. I think that also harkens back to Netanyahu's whole plan to begin with. It's not like Netanyahu openly stated. I mean, sometimes he kind of did, and he's been on like hot mic talking about the I'm not supporting.
You gotta be an idiot to think otherwise.
But like, if Netanyahu outright said, "I'm supporting Hamas because no one will ever negotiate with insane terrorists, and that's how we're going to destabilize the Palestinians, and then we could take over the whole land," I think some people, because Israelis are not psychopaths, are going to be like, "Hey, that's crazy. We shouldn't do that." If he just openly came out and said it in that way. Right? Again, this is why we're fucking covering these things and why you should know about the history of these things. Because if you don't, then you're just going to like hear the first thing you hear on CNN or Fox News or Donald Trump or Joe Biden tells you is probably going to be whatever. Turn a place into parking lot, bad terrorists, no good. Whatever it is. It's just funny.
To uncover how absurd.
Yes, it's funny because this is actually kind of the point I made before. But to underscore how absurd the refugee resettlement plan is, the de facto Houthi government in Yemen claimed an attack today on a U.S. ship as well as commercial vessels in the Red Sea. So we'd be sending them more angry people to to their country. Back on October 20th, in a little noticed message to Congress, the White House asked for $3.495 billion that would be used for refugees from both Ukraine and Gaza, referencing potential needs of Gazans fleeing to neighboring countries. This is going to also, I'm America first, and I don't care about what's going on there. Well, this could cost you $4 billion just to move the people out of there because Israel wants to fight this war and kick them the fuck out of there. The crisis could well result in displacement across border and high regional humanitarian needs, and funding may be used to meet evolving programming requirements outside of Gaza. The letter, the White House Office of Management and Budget reads, the letter came 2 days after Jordan and Egypt warned that they would not open their borders to a mass exodus of Palestinians, arguing the past history shows they would never be able to return. I think that's a good point as well. I don't know if I've made that on the show here before. A lot of people be like, "Oh, well, how come?" That's kind of like one of the right-wing talking points. Like, why won't the neighboring countries like take in the refugees or help the Palestinians? Yeah, I don't know. They're not going to be ever welcomed back. Right, like we're all clear here now, right? Like, Netanyahu and the Likud, they're fine with killing everybody, but they'll just as much like take them, just get lost, like leave.
Yeah,
you could just walk out. Does it sound like they're going to allow them to come back after something happens where Hamas is
there's
gone
no
or whatever?
future plan where there's a peace talk and these people are allowed back. They're just misplaced forever. They are a stateless, defeated people. That's it.
Yeah, right.
I have to give it up though to Netanyahu for like the idea of total domination. Like let's take it out of the real world.
Sure.
When we play like Call of Duty, there's no lives on the line. There's no billions in tax funded money, no politics.
Do you distinguish between
when you play Call of Duty? What do you want? Total domination, death and destruction, control the board, destroy your enemy. I got to give it up to him for like having that mindset in real life. Like, this guy only wants like a total victory. Won't take a partial victory, won't take a 99% victory. 100% victory that he claims is a victory.
You know what it is? It's
What?
savage. You know
Yeah.
what he calls the Palestinians?
Savages?
Yeah. Right? Isn't that ironic?
Yeah.
Right? So that's where we're at. We could be funding the refugee crisis. I was laughing before we were reading some of that. They were talking about like, oh, they'll figure out, like lines or ways to send people, through, out the Mediterranean Sea into Europe. Like, those routes exist already. How many migrants are already all, leaving Africa and whatnot and all these regions to go into Europe? So if you're a Europe first person, you probably also want to make sure that the Palestinians and the people in Gaza get to keep their land and get their state, because you don't want them coming to your country either, I'm sure. Especially people who just got bombed and their kids killed and left. Like, they're not going to be fucking happy. All of this stuff, that being said, like, why you should care is because, don't you think, I mean, like, this is the point that the right-wingers are making, right? Like, the border's open and Hamas could now attack us at any moment. Yeah, okay. Like, I think we made this point when we had our blowback episode. It's like, yeah, well, that's going to be the result of us getting involved and supporting this shit. And if you just sit around and you're like, head in the sand, I don't care, turn the place into a parking lot, I'm America first.
Well,
okay, well, is it America first to, like, set the conditions that are going to lead up to a terrorist attack happening against America?
You put that very well. No, it's not the America First policy to set up the conditions to lead to a terrorist attack in America, but it is the establishment policy. You get all the right wingers who are America First. You get the Biden administration, who they hate already, nonstop support for Ukraine. America First people put their head in the sand. Terrorist attack takes place. Everybody's caught by surprise. Let's go to war. Right. I could see that plan perfect.
Yeah, it is, right? It's like there. The roadmap is there. That's where we come in.
And I hate to tell you, because I know the CIA is sitting at YouTube watching all our shows. If we could figure it out, you guys ain't doing that good.
Yeah.
All right. If these two dummies can figure it out, you're fucked.
That's why you should care. Right. That's why it's not just an America first. I don't want to make the moral argument or get involved in the whole Israel thing. No, you should know, because if you're armed with information, you can make better decisions in your life, and like what you talk about, what you think, what you vote for,
and also
support, whatever.
And also, just on the last article that you read and this clip that we're going to show you now, Skag started the show off by saying we're involved in this. We're connected to it, whether you want it or not. Because literally the senators who you and I voted for, and every listener here, because the majority of people who listen to this show live in America, your own senators are behind closed doors talking about a policy that includes genocide. I don't want those people representing me, and you don't want those people representing you, whether you're America First or not. Maybe if you're a progressive left-wing nut job, you do, Actually, no, you don't, because you're pro-Palestine.
On this one.
You know what I'm saying?
But hang on, just change the war, though, and they'll flip. If Netanyahu and Israel were smart, they're not anti-war, the leftists. Like, they'll get on your side. You just got to you need a little bit better marketing campaign. Like, that's one of the points I wanted to make, too. It's like, my God, are they terrible at marketing? Like, they are constantly getting in, like, posting terrible videos. The statements coming out of Netanyahu like this, Jesus Christ, like, button it up, buddy. If you want people to be on your side, you can't operate this way. Like, I don't know, take some advice from I don't know, like, from whoever. Take some advice from Zelensky, right? How does he get all the leftists on his side? Putin is a bad guy. Whatever the fuck, and all this shit. So it's really bizarre. It really is. Any other thoughts before we go on to the video?
I would say even more that Zelensky has a better platform to stand on to say Putin is the bad guy than Netanyahu has to say Palestine's the bad guy or Hamas is the bad guy.
Yeah.
I agree more with Zelensky.
Right. In this one, right. Like, right. That's a very good point. Yeah. I don't know what it is. You know, like I shared over the weekend. There was a photo of. So again, going back to marketing, right? This is one of the points I wrote down to make, trying to help Israel here. Again, their marketing is terrible. Palestine Square in Gaza. It's like this place. It's called Palestine Square in Gaza. There is a photo. I can see if I find it real quick. The place is bombed out and leveled. There's dirt everywhere. It's a mess. And they raised the Israeli flag at the center of Palestine Square. And you know who posted this? Not Hamas. The IDF. Israel posted this. So again, like, I mean, like, what do you think? What do you think people are going to think when you're behaving like that and doing shit like that, right? Like, again, the leftists are seeing this as like a colonialism thing, like the colonial power and the poor oppressed brown person or whatever. And then you go and you take a photo of you raising your flag in the square named after their country or the country that they want. Like that's terrible fucking marketing. It's not. So again, these guys really are just, you know, evil to a certain extent. But then again, like they need better marketing. I don't know who they could fucking Calvin Klein or get somebody.
I think to be a world leader, you have to be semi-retarded.
I don't know if it's semi-retarded. You definitly have to be.
You're right, full on retarded.
Let's see if we can find this, just because it's like a shocking photo. And I actually made a funny meme over the weekend too. Okay, I found it here. Let's share real quick. I made a funny meme. There was some congresswoman from New York who wore an Israeli flag dress, and I put her like here as Godzilla, and it got a lot of likes. But like, yeah, like what, like again, like just outside, like take aside, put the moral argument aside, put the America First argument aside. Is this going to help anyone?
Dude,
is this going to help
Latino _ Sylvia 10, bro? How can you be happy for this?
Exactly. Yeah. It doesn't make sense. It's not good. It's your like your Maj Touré talks about this sometimes. It's like you're making them think like whatever it is they think you are, you're making them think that, like with this. Even if you want to say that you're not that thing, like, so let's say you want to be like, I'm not a racist, but then you go around calling every black person the N-word, N-word. You're like, I'm not a racist. I don't know. Well, like, look what you're doing all the time.
Yeah.
You know, like 2 and 2 don't fucking add up here. It's just dumb. Let's move on to the video. Again, if you're a right winger and you want to be like America first, I don't care. What's going on? Here's Ted Cruz, and this is pretty funny. As we talked about,
bought and paid for by Israel.
We talked about before, we mentioned it. There's a lot around this freedom of speech thing. From the river to the sea, Palestine shall be free. And like we said before, most of these people can't even name the river or the sea because they're idiots, right? But people on the right have basically been like, well, that's a call for genocide, and you shouldn't be allowed to say that. And if you are, you should be banned off of this and banned off of that, and you should lose your job. Doesn't that sound familiar?
I love how...
Who was the last person, the last groups advocating for those types of things?
What was that?
You know, being kicked off of social media and...
Oh, yeah, the left-wing nut jobs,
right?
yeah.
But now the right is saying it about the left. So
I love how now the culture in America has changed so much thanks to the lunatic fringe of the progressive left that any situation that now arises, war, famine, whatever... Not only do we need to talk about it, we also need to talk about what we shouldn't be allowed to say about it. Would you ban people from saying this? It's a fascinating, retarded thing to like even cover. But like you'll see, the newscaster says it.
Yeah. So this actually, I believe this is Ryan Grimm, the guy who we read the article of. So follows nicely here. It's really entertaining. Let's listen.
Do you distinguish between opposition to Zionism and anti-Semitism, or do you believe that those are the same thing?
I think anti-Zionism is anti-Semitism.
What do you? I mean, what do you say to so many?
Sorry, let me preface this here for those who are listening. This is Ryan Grimm, and he's interviewing Ted Cruz, Republican, America First person. You know, to some extent or another, whatever. Let's continue.
Different Jewish groups who say that they are anti-Zionist.
So the ones that are radical leftist organizations that look, There are 50 some odd Muslim nations on the face of the planet. There's one Jewish nation, the state of Israel. The modern state of Israel was formed coming out of World War II, coming out of the wake of the Holocaust. And it was formed on the premise that never again means never again, that we would not allow 6 million Jews to be exterminated by genocidal, racist maniacs.
Stop. He's wrong. The more you look into it, the more you learn. Israel was founded after World War II, but it didn't, like if you go to Israel and you start reading their history, like let's say they teach Israeli
There's
history,
nothing to do with Hitler. Yeah.
I'm not saying it doesn't. Let's say, again, I've never been to Israeli elementary school, but I'm sure they tell the whole history of Israel to some extent or another. Like we teach about the American Revolution and
the history they want the
13
students to know.
colonies. And yes, of course, it's government school, whatever. But the Zionist project started way before World War II. Started in the 1800s. So Ted Cruz starts history for Israel in 1947. But in reality, the Zionist project, and this is what they're talking about, Zionism, and this is a fucking sitting person in government who's very popular, and everybody knows who he is. History started in Israel, 1947, even though we're talking about the thing that led to the Zionism, the project. It's a project. Literally, that's what it is to some extent. You can dive into it if you want. But again, he's Jamal Bowman. He's Kamala Harris. He's Nikki Haley. Like, they didn't know what the fuck he's talking about. But no, put your head in the sand. You shouldn't know. This is the guy making policy around this thing. He's there literally advocating on behalf of Israel. More war. This is what essentially was doing. Let's continue.
I think the Jewish people deserve to have a homeland. That is theirs. Israel was historically a Jewish nation going back thousands of years. I've walked in the city of David. I've walked on the streets where Jesus walked down the streets. And anti-Zionists, look, when you see leftists chanting from the river to the sea, that means from the Jordan River to the sea. It literally means obliterate the modern state of Israel because they hate Israel and they want to eliminate the only Jewish nation in the world that is racist and genocidal. Now, you asked earlier, would I ban that statement? No, I'd allow people to say it. You know, members of the squad have tweeted out from the river to the sea. But the answer, I'd allow them to say it, but I wouldn't sit there quietly. I'd point out that you are calling for, once again, the extermination of millions of Jews.
As I'm sure you know, though, in Likud's platform, it says, from the river to the sea, there will only be Israeli sovereignty. Are they suggesting genocide of all Palestinians?
Of course not.
Exactly. So if they're not, why is the other suggesting
My
genocide?
side would never do that.
That's what Hamas supports.
I don't know. What points could I make here about this? What do you
Lunacy.
got?
How can you, in the same minute, say if one side says from the river to the sea, it means genocide, but if your side says from the river to the sea, it means flowers and roses and rainbows for everybody? Meanwhile, Netanyahu, we just had an article about Netanyahu saying we are going to thin out the Palestinian population so badly that Turkey and Africa and Yemen and Egypt are going to have to take 2.5 million refugees or we're going to kill them all. And now you have Ted Cruz here going, oh, well, from the river to the sea from Israel does not mean genocide. When the Palestinians say it, they mean genocide. How does that even work? Because isn't Palestine in between the river and the sea?
Right. Just like Israel is. They're both sharing the same area.
Okay. Never mind. I
both
understand.
They both
Never
are.
mind.
In certain areas,
Fucked up a little bit in geography. Got it.
That's fine. That's
Got
why
it.
it's important to even know the maps of the place, right? Because it's all interrelated. His rationale is he says, well, that's because that's what Hamas says. And that's what they want to do is commit genocide. We just spent 1 hour telling you who supports Hamas. Benjamin Netanyahu, right? Whose party was Ryan Grimm just talking about? Who has it in their charter? The Likud. Whose party is that? Benjamin Netanyahu's. So his defense is like, no, well, they mean it because it's Hamas who's saying it. Well, okay, well then the guy who supports Hamas also means it, right? Like, is he then also saying that there should be genocide against Israel? That Benjamin Netanyahu supports Hamas. Is he also then by proxy saying that there should be genocide against Jews in Israel. Like that's I mean, like we could get into this like logic, fucking circular reasoning or whatever here, but this is why you should pay attention. This guy has his finger on the pulse, on the finger on legislation. We've played clips of him before where he's at least Ted Cruz is like, they should be able to say it because freedom of speech, and whatever. But like, again, keep in mind just these are the people in charge. This is why you should care. And going back to kind of what we started on, like moral relativism and moral objectivism, Ted Cruz is a moral relativist, right? He doesn't actually care about humans. He just cares about like my in-group of humans, and everybody else, fuck him, I don't care. Burn him at the stake, whatever. I'll come up with some justification as to why it's okay, and I'm sorry. Personally, I don't like that. Like, I don't think we should be operating as people thinking that way. I don't think it's healthy or good.
Fair enough. The hypocrisy is just, it's painful at this point.
Yeah.
It's painful to witness.
And like, I don't know, again, me personally, like, I also don't think like if you're making those points, like, how can I respect you after take anything seriously? You have to say when I know how you think about people. Like, if you're going to sit here and converse in the political sphere and make points, you should be fucking honorable at least. Well, like if you want people to then listen to you after. That's not honorable. That's terrible.
All the crazy left-wing nut jobs in Congress who blindly supported Ukraine, as far as I'm concerned, bought and paid for by Ukraine. All the crazy right-wing extremists who are pro-Israel, and people like Ted Cruz who are sitting there saying, when one side says it, that means genocide, and the other side says it, that means peace and rainbows. Bought and paid for by Israel, people.
So
we're in the time of exposing the right.
Yep. So we got tweets of the week, but I'll end the conversation at least on this one question for you, and I want the audience to think about this. Think long, hard, and deeply. What do you think is Benjamin Netanyahu's goal in Gaza?
Total domination, destruction, death. Well, just based on what he's saying, victory by any means necessary. Israel will what was that statement that he made before? The future Israel.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
the future state of Israel. Yeah.
That's his goal. Whether he flattens all of Gaza and Palestine, or whether he chases those people out of there, that's his goal.
Yeah.
And for like I said earlier, if that's really your goal, just do it tonight, bro. Do it tonight. You got the power. It's a small strip of land. Do it tonight. Put your money where your mouth is.
Well,
like,
yeah.
As Homelander said, I got nothing to lose. Let's light this candle. You know what I mean?
Well, that's what they're doing essentially. Biden did give some pushback to him in the last couple of days here, saying you got to kind of like reorganize your government there. This is insane. I think Biden is starting to feel the pressure of what I said on the past couple episodes. Hey, the base, you guys are like not aligned on this, and they really care about this. And the longer you stay unaligned, the more those poll numbers are going to sink. So I think someone in the White House might have heard me, or finally just fucking started looking. Like, they're not smart here in this administration, so it took them a couple of weeks to figure it out. But Biden is even starting to pressure Netanyahu. Like, we better like change what we're doing here a bit. And Netanyahu's basically said, no, get fucked. We're going to do this our way, and our way is to just level the place and kick everybody out. All right, so let's head on over to tweets of the week. They are applicable, at least on my side, to the conversation we just had.
I don't even know if I have the new ones.
Are these new? I don't know. Rob Reiner for you and King. I feel like we did do those last time. Kniekers? I don't know. Sound familiar? We'll take a look, but we'll start with mine. We're going to start with Davey Smith. And Davey Smith said, opposing an ethno-state makes you a bigot. Pretty obvious. I thought that was fucking a great tweet. Opposing an ethno-state makes you a bigot. Pretty obvious. That's what we're being told now. Like, or at least that's what, like, I'm not even like personally opposed to an ethno-state where like if a bunch of people get together voluntarily and they say, I only want Italian people to live in this area, I might not want to live in them because I think that's kind of bigoted. But look, if they voluntarily do that, whatever. You know what I mean? Like, they have a right to do that if they legally got the land. But That's what you're being told now. Like, if you kind of oppose what, the concept of Zionism, that you're a bigot. If you oppose the idea of a country that only allows one type of people in it, you're the bigot.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Dude, this is what Donald Trump did for racism. Racism has gone so far out of control that we are now saying, racist. If you're not for the racist thing, you're a racist.
If you oppose the Third Reich in World War II and Hitler making the master race, you're racist against German people.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm sorry, it's not a perfect comparison. I'm not saying Jews are Nazis or anything like that. And these goofy takes people have trying to make that point. That's not what I'm saying. I'm just like, that's the concept that some people are using to shield the Israeli government from any criticism. Everything's anti-Semitic, just like everything is a Putin talking point or whatever. Just fucking swap them out. Whatever the topic is, there's some stupid goofy take. Try and like dismiss any logical criticism you might have. All right, let's check.
If it's Rob Reiner, I'm pretty sure that's the old one.
Yeah, I think it's the old one. All right, Captain had a busy week and wasn't feeling good. So if you vote for anyone but Joe Biden, you're voting to destroy American democracy. We've heard that one a million times from Rob Reiner. So I got 4. Let's keep rolling here. My next one is from Luke. Keep it real, Luke. This is a random person. Israel is to the United States what the WNBA is to the NBA. Loads of funding with little to no return on investment, and a bunch of whiners saying they need more money year after year.
Because the WNBA is useless.
Yep. Next one is from Tulsi Gabbard. Tulsi Gabbard says, as we remember Japan's aggression in the Pacific, we need to ask ourselves this question. Is the remilitarization of Japan, which is presently underway, truly a good idea? We need to be careful that the short-sighted, self-serving leaders do not end up bringing us again face-to-face with a remilitarized Japan. This is on December 7th, Pearl Harbor. What?
Are you
what?
kidding me?
Go ahead.
Japan's been an ally for decades now, number one. And number two, the only way I don't even think Japan would play into this, but a remilitarized Japan attacking America would only be successful the same way Pearl Harbor was successful, is if the government turned a blind eye to the attack and let it happen so we could get involved in another war.
There's a reason why I picked this tweet.
Little tiny island on the other side of the planet is going to take down the largest military empire in the history of the planet.
There's a reason why I picked this tweet.
Okay.
It's applicable, right? In so many ways, more than one. Like the point you just made, we could apply that to the situation in Israel right now.
Yeah.
How about the idea that I'm sure if you went back to go back to December 8th, do you think any American at the time probably thought like, oh, well, in the future, we're going to have peace with the Japanese and they're going to be our biggest ally and everything's going to be, peachy keen? No.
Right. No.
But we did. Right? So, like, it is possible for the Israeli. If it's possible for us to make peace with the fucking Japanese and the brutality between the fighting of the two sides had in the war, then it's possible for the Palestinians and the Israelis to make peace. But look, Tulsi Gabbard, I don't know where this is coming from. This, like, warmongering rhetoric.
It's weird for her.
It is weird. It is weird. And to be fair, she can be a little bit of a warmonger, to be honest, here and there on certain issues. But this one is just bizarre. Yeah, I tweet under.
Who was the last person to worry about Japan?
Yeah, right? Like, not only that, but like, let's take the America First position. It actually is America First for Japan to have its own military. Why? Because they can just defend themselves, and we don't have to do it. We don't have to have our bases there and give them money. And because of this empire thing we want to do, where we want to like entrap China in a certain thing, let them do it. Let Japan do it. If they're worried about China, let them fucking worry about it. We're like so intertwined with Japan business, like in terms of economics and business, like
trade. Yeah,
they like us. Like they fucking we play baseball games over there all the time. Hideki Matsui, all that shit. Like, we're not going to war with them ever. I literally tell you, you're fucking dumb. What do you think? Hirohito's going to raise from the dead and lead a bonsai charge against the West Coast? Let Japan defend itself. The fuck? This makes no sense. This is just like pointless warmongering. Tulsi Gabbard's really just, I don't know. I'm not even going to say out of character.
They're all being exposed.
My last one. is by Mike Cernovich, who blocked me after this one. And Mike Cernovich is quote tweeting Scott Horton. So we're bringing this full circle. We're bringing it right back to Scott Horton, who was replying to him. And Scott Horton's basically saying, Jesus Christ, who fucking cares? The Israeli government is tearing innocent people to shreds and burying them alive by the thousands with your weapons and money, while your fellow Americans are going to get killed in terrorist attacks and further wars over it. And you're still crying about some stupid college leftist sideshow. Talk about low IQ. This is in response to Cernovich probably crying about some leftists who are saying some mean things about Israel. Okay. Cernovich goes, if Israel stops, then what? You'll demand Israel does blah, 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 and the goalposts will never stop moving. Hyper-partisans like yourself are responsible for this mess. Israel has given up trying. Pragmatic peacemakers like me get ripped all from both sides. I'm used to it. I chimed in. I'm like, yeah, hyper-partisans like Scott Horton are responsible for the war between Hamas and Israel. Scott Horton. That's essentially what Mike Cernovich is saying. Scott Horton is responsible for the mess in Israel and Palestine.
Guy probably doesn't even know who Scott Horton is.
No, he does. What's even more ironic about this is I looked into this before he fucking blocked me for this reply. He tweeted Scott Horton's book like a year ago, enough already, and Time to End the War in Afghanistan. And he was like, everyone should read this book. And in the book, Scott Horton lays out like how Israel's connected to all these things and why it's not good and all this shit. It's a bizarre take. It really is. And just like on just the most plain, like the most plain logical level, to say that Scott Horton is responsible for the Israel-Palestine thing is so removed from reality.
It's just because Scott Horton left this comment, so he had to fight him, and there was no other way to do it except to blame him. Pass the blame. Projection.
I guess so. I'm not going to let it stand. Scott Horton's our boy. He does good work. He's a wealth of knowledge, so I'm not going to let it stand. So I got blocked by Cernovich.
You sound like a hyper partisan.
Yeah, I guess so. Think we made our point, Captain. Sign us off.
Yes, sir. All right, Doom Nation. I hope you guys enjoyed this episode. I know we did. As always, make sure you like, share, and subscribe. We will see you guys next week. I don't think we have anything too crazy on the books yet, but we are working on some very important guests coming on.
We're going to be
we won't say who.
We're going to be on Kill the Mockingbirds, Sean Chris's show coming up. We actually, funny enough, we recorded an episode with him like a month ago on his show, Kill the Mockingbirds. Check it out. And he had a technological issue, and we lost the whole thing. I thought it was a really good episode, too, so I'm pretty sad about that. But he rebooked us. We're going to do it again with him and coming up. So
yes, sir. So, yeah, keep an eye out for us on Kill the Mockingbird. Keep an eye out for some of the guests we're going to have coming on. And as always, make sure you like, share, and subscribe. Adios, Doom Nation.